So what are we here to do today? We are here to talk about Nuxt and Notion. And so I'll do a quick review for anyone who might be new to the stream or haven't, used these technologies before. But then after that, we're just going to dive right in and just get cranking because we have a lot we're going to try to do during the stream. So with that, let's switch on over to the live screen. So first thing first, as a review, or not even review, as a quick intro. So Nuxt, right? What is Nuxt? So for those who don't know, I'm on the Vue.js core team. So as you might expect, I love all things Vue. And most importantly, there is an amazing meta framework that's built on top of Vue called Nuxt that really helps to make a lot of things that are really common with sort of building websites and applications a lot easier. So an example of this is like when you're traditionally using a JavaScript single page application, you have to do all the routing yourself, right? So you might install the router library for your framework, but then you have to set up the config routes and that kind of thing. And with Nuxt, it can be as simple as doing page level routing. So you have like a folder called pages. And then as you do the individual, as you build out your directory and your paths, it's literally the files like in that structure. So a lot less to configure, which is super nice. Hey, how's it going, Guillaume? Good to see you again. It was great that we catch up earlier. And so yeah, so that's the one. And so it's basically a beloved meta framework built on top of Vue. And there are lots of awesome resources out there. So it's what I use to build a lot of the websites and stuff that I sort of help to maintain, especially ones that require things like static site generation. Nuxt makes things just super easy to use. So on top of that, let me use incognito for Notion because I'm pretty sure I'm logged in, so it won't do the homepage. So for those who don't know, Notion is a productivity software, a very popular one at that has gotten really kind of mainstream with teams and a lot of tech companies in that it really makes it a lot easier to take notes. There's a lot of fun things about it that kind of make it like a WYSIWYG, so what you see is what you get, but it has a lot of extensibility as far as customization, block types, as well as some relational database things that we'll be talking about in the stream. So that way, for those who are kind of new to it, you kind of can see where it comes from scratch and that kind of stuff. So with that said, in the brief intro, let's dive right in. I think it'll be easier to do a bit more of a show and tell rather than kind of explain it any further. So with that, let's kick it off. So first thing first, what we want to do is let's go ahead and I'm going to set up a GitHub repo so that we can actually have this for people to reference in the future, because this will also be going up on YouTube. I finally got a good workflow going forward for getting this stuff up, and then we'll be enhancing it over time to make sure we include all the resources and that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, you know what though? Oh no, I know what to do. I want to practice creating it from the CLI because that's something that I've been trying to get more in the habit of. So let's do that. So what I'm going to use is the GitHub CLI client. And so when you see me use the GH, that is what that stands for. So I'll go to my projects and let's see, repo, create. Actually, let me bump us up a little bit. I will create a Nuxt Notion blog. Yep, that's all I'm going to call it. This will be a public one. Yes, that's what we're going to call it. Nuxt Notion blog. Yes, great. And then Nuxt Notion blog. Okay, so let's clear this up. And then let's go ahead and run the yarn create, I think, Nuxt.js app. I want to say it's this. Nope, okay. I always forget the command for this when getting started. And so it's, Nuxt-app. I was close. I think I got used to the Vite way of creating things, so that's what kind of threw me off. And so right now what we're doing is we're using the Nuxt CLI to scaffold the basically, wait, it's not empty. lsal. Is it because there's a Git directory in here? Boo. All right, I wish there was an easier way to instantiate this. All right, for now, just because the scaffold is more important, we're not going to worry about that right now. So let me remove Nuxt Notion blog. That's kind of silly though. Create Nuxt app, Nuxt Notion blog. I typed TIG. That's right. So for those wondering, TIG, that is not a typo, believe it or not. Hold on, let me set some of this stuff up. I'm gonna keep it really simple. I'm not even gonna, do I even want the Git? Nope, I'm not gonna skip content. Sure, ESLint prettier, that's fine. No testing framework, SSG, JS stack hosting, JS config, and then no, okay. So the question, so I guess with a little bit of developer tooling here. So yeah, TIG is basically a CLI enhancement on top of Git. And so to show you how this works, I think the easiest thing really is I'll go into my BenCodeZen project real quick. And so in here, what we'll see here is, let me go ahead and open this up in VS Code, and let's make some changes, right? So let's go ahead in the README, for example, and I'm gonna say this is my update, right? And we're gonna go ahead and save this. So typically you might use something like VS Code's Git to like look at the diff and that kind of stuff. But for me, before like a lot of the sort of graphical user interface tools were a lot more available for Git, I was trying to always figure out better ways of doing it within the command line because that was kind of how things were done. So as you can see here, my terminal is telling me that there's a change. That's where you get this little red exclamation point in. And so typically what you're taught is you do something like git status, right? Git status tells you right here that the README has changed and you don't really know what it is. And so you probably have to like do things to like log it out a little bit more. And I always thought this is a little bit odd. So what you can do is instead of git status, TIG, which is its own tool in itself, is I would do TIG status. And what TIG status does is kind of creates a bit of a GUI, so that's what stands for graphical user interface. Although not as many graphics, but it's you can interact with it. So you can see here that using the basically I'm using the IKJL. So they're like arrow keys basically. Actually, they're arrow keys for me. Sorry. You use your arrow keys, you can go up and down like you would expect normally with the select. And then when I'm hovering over something, I can actually hit enter to actually look at the file itself and inspect it. And so this is really nice for me because this has been like kind of my workflow for a long time for like double checking what has been changed, what kind of stuff. And then more importantly from here, since you're in TIG now, you don't actually need to do like git add specific file. I can simply hit basically when I'm hovering over, I can hit U to basically put it upstage it, and then it puts it into the staging, and then from there I can go ahead and commit, which is super nice. So if you really like staying in the CLI for managing Git, TIG I really do enjoy. They've done a lot for me. And then so like, the TIG logs are super nice. Or so this is an example of TIG log, whereas like if I were to do the same thing here using git log, for example, you'll see it's not as nicely, like the coloring is it's a little bit different, and then you can see like the changes and that kind of stuff. So it's got like a nice basically like developer experience enhancement on top of it, which I super appreciate. Okay, so actually what I'm going to do here, because I'm trying to be better about writing this stuff. So let's see, TIG, nope, that's not what I want. Git, TIG, git, here we go, text mode interface. So maybe GUI is actually technically inaccurate. Ooh, yeah, I'm here with a suggestion on Git Kraken. Let me go ahead, so let me drop this in. So we did talk about TIG. I want to make sure I drop a resource to this in here. Talked about TIG. And then, okay, Guillaume here with the Git Kraken. All right, we're going to take a quick look because I've heard Git Kraken be talked about a bit. Oh, so this is like a true GUI. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I have overall avoided GUIs, not for any particular reason, actually. I think I just got used to the CLI. And so I could see how, especially if you're managing a lot of different branches, that kind of stuff, it would be nice to have all these visualizations. So I will, you know what I'm going to do in Obsidian, let me go ahead. Let me see. Yum mentions, recommends Git Kraken. All right, I'm gonna timestamp that. Okay, epic. All right, so let's go ahead and check in on our Nuxt site over here. So we do Nuxt Notion blog. It looks like we are good to go. The only thing is I need to add the repo. So okay, so let's use, so this I'm using now is something called, oh god, Raycast. So for Alfred users, if you're into productivity, Raycast is like they took out what made Alfred great and like put like the kind of traditional or the more like modern like plugins and that kind of stuff and integrations with it. So you can see that within GitHub, I can actually search repositories, and then it has all this stuff integrated automatically within Raycast, which is super nice. So if you haven't used Alfred, I just realized, for those who haven't, this is a bit like the Spotlight, so command space for those using a Mac. And I believe this is actually available on Windows as well. But anyhow, Raycast, also super cool tool. So what I'm looking for though is the Nuxt Notion, because assuming the CLI did its thing, it did, excellent. So I could open that up, and then I need to add this origin, so I'm just going to copy this stuff over here. There's probably a way to do that. Push origin main. It failed to push some refs. Why is that? TIG status. So, oh, you can see here, I can actually add the whole group by pressing U on the category, which is super nice. So here I can go git commit config init. Oh, snap. All right. Raycast is made with Vue. Oh my gosh, that is a great... Oh man, I'm totally writing that down. Okay, so let's see. Where's my Raycast note? Raycast app here. Website is made with Vue. Thanks to tip from Eddie Mitchell, 67. That's awesome. Gives me all the more reason to use it, to be honest. Okay, so whoops, that's not what I wanted. So git commit init Nuxt CLI scaffold. All right, great. So I think it added the thing correctly. Okay, it's good. Refresh, everything is good. Okay, excellent. That was, I wish that integration was a little bit cleaner. Maybe there's something I don't know about GitHub CLI that would make that easier, because I've noticed that with some scaffolding tools, the moment you have a Git directory in there, for whatever reason, it crashes itself. So, anyways. Okay, so we've done the intro as far as the agenda goes, and then we've set up GitHub Repo, set up the Nuxt site. Great. Okay, now, so Nuxt is ready to go, and now the question is, how do we take Notion into this? So what I want to do is sort of do a brief primer on Notion to show you kind of what I'm thinking, and then that way, you know, in case this is something you're interested in as far as using Notion as a CMS, then, you know, we can take it from there. Okay, Raycast is apparently Mac only. My apologies. Yeah, let me go ahead and it is Mac only. Sorry. I keep, honestly, when people ask me why I'm still in the Apple ecosystem, this is one of the reasons. Some of the, at least to me, the more modern productivity tools and cutting edge, for some reason tend to be on Mac systems that I found. But I know that Guillaume here is also a big fan of, I want to say Linux. I think, or Ubuntu? Shoot. This is where I'm a little bit lacking of knowledge of there. But, so Guillaume, hopefully they make that multi-platform soon. But Raycast is really great for those who can try it. Elementary OS, Linux. Okay, I was right. Okay, excellent. Okay, all right. So again, check out Raycast. Oh, I'll drop Raycast again, the website here for y'all. If you're interested in it, it's super great. All right, now let's talk about Notion. All right. So for Notion, what I've gone to here to do is wow, tongue twister. All right. So I'm opening Notion. I should be logged in, but funny enough, Notion is taking a couple seconds to load. And it was fine 10 minutes before the stream. Let me think. Oh no. Are you serious? No incidents reported today. Service interruption on the 2nd. Okay. Maybe it's just a one-off glitch. There's the fav icon. Ooh, making me nervous. All right, that's okay though. If it really doesn't work, we got ways to deal with this. Okay, so I'm gonna, let's see. I'm gonna see if I was trying to do it with the web app, but a bit ironic though okay, Guillaume said his doesn't load either. I guess yours, I guess this thing seems to be broken, especially with the comment part. I'm not sure what you mean with the comment part, Eddie Mitchell. Oh man, is Notion down? Because that would, I mean, talk about poor timing. Okay, that is gateway timeout. Yeah, woof. Okay, that's actually, no, that's actually a fairly significant problem. All right, so let's think about this for a second. Okay, so this is kind of funny that this is happening on the stream as we do this, because typically Notion is pretty reliable on the uptime, but this is where things like this is one of the reasons I would say when discussing, like realistically discussing pros and cons of Notion, it does seem to have more performance issues than call it more traditional CMSs. And so what I mean is, like, if you're using something like Contentful, I mean, gosh, any of those other like headless CMS that you're probably thinking of using, Ghost and that kind of stuff, they seem to have really good uptime. But Notion, I think, because of perhaps its approach as a collaborative productivity like working area, people do seem to be, I don't know, call it pushing it in all different kinds of directions, and performance does seem to be, well, it's can be a little bit of a problem sometimes. And so as a whole, Notion as a tool is wonderful, and when you're using it, it's great. On the other hand, this does mean that if you pour everything you have into it, When Notion is down, you are SOL. So you are, or for those who know the acronym, you are out of luck. Is what that basically means. And so that is honestly a reason to be, call it like a little bit concerned if you're worried about, if you're building some really large infrastructure around Notion. But however, the reason why, like for most people, uptime would be like the number one, like, oh, if its uptime isn't like perfect, like near perfect, I don't want much to do with it. However, Notion's flexibility in its ability, like at least for a lot of people, the ease of use and it's like different types of content blocks and how like, I mean, ease of use really is a lot of it. It's very powerful in what allows you to scale and do. And I think for that reason, it brings a lot of people in because the learning curve is a lot lower compared to like, if you're like, oh, I need to share like a CMS with someone with like database records, like that's fairly low level. But Notion makes it really easy so that like in the event you just want to share like a page with someone, it's actually quite easy to do so. And so I'm hoping with that little monologue, they've fixed their uptime issue. But no, that seems to be not a problem. That is not the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over some of the materials actually that I was going to go over anyways regarding some of the integration pieces. And hopefully in that time we have a bit more of an uptime. If not, we'll figure something out next. So at the bare minimum, I'm hoping that the Notion API page is, because that should be totally separate. And it is. Great. Okay. So for those who don't know, basically Notion finally released an API earlier this year. I forgot exactly which month. It wasn't that long ago. But this is a big deal because what this means is that originally what was essentially just like a text editor that allowed you to update things. So I'm trying to think of what's a good example. No, I don't think I have a good one on that. But like, so.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Oof, there's my Apple Watch going off again. It's weird to me that my Apple Watch goes off on times like this because it definitely didn't say the command phrase. So, anyways, that Notion API. So what this means is when you're managing your data inside of Notion, we finally have the ability to actually not only pull data out, but we can also theoretically then update data. And this is, as developers, this is super exciting. Why? Because, well, after all, we like the ability for us to fetch data, have that sort of separation of concerns, but then have the programmatic ability to take things like Vue or Nuxt and take it to the next level so that people can then interact with it in a slightly different way, but at least you have Notion as like your central truth. And so, as we can see here, there is quite a bit that you can do with it in terms of like getting data. So let's see. Actually, here's some examples. So I was taking a look at this earlier. And so what's cool is that they're starting to look at integrations because so many people are using Notion to do things like syncing with GitHub issues, as you can see on the left. And then they have a simple example here of triggering a Notion, triggering like an action, like an automation based on Notion. So for this particular example, let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick. Let me bump this up a lot so we can see. What you're essentially doing here, for those that don't have a lot of experience with it though, is like you're writing these sort of hooks and basically like serverless functions that allow you to say like, when something happens, do this thing. And so theoretically, you're basically saying that like when, and in this particular case, when an update happens to the Notion page, send an email. And you can see here that there's basically the ability to use, and in this case, you're using SendGrid to do the email sending. But the problem here, and I say a problem, is that while this is extremely powerful from like a you can now do anything, this does mean that this is something you'd have to spend the time to learn and integrate yourself. And so, for example, over the last 2 streams, I've been working a lot with Airtable, for example. And Airtable, so hopefully Airtable is not down. Okay, so Airtable here. So here are my events. Great. So Airtable, on the other hand, is a bit like Notion in terms of like having the ability to give you like relational databases, and it actually is fairly easy to use. So it's not like a full document editor though. So let me be very clear. It's more of a structured database, but it has that approachability of like kind of being like an Excel spreadsheet, being able to update things and click on things and update it as you will. So for example, you can see here that like, you know, this here is just like a drop-down menu that I configured. And I can customize the type of data it is. Is it multiple checkbox? Is it, you know, etc. And so Notion has something basically just like this. And what's nice is you basically have like basically a user interface way of defining your data in a way that makes the most sense to you. And then I can configure options that are like conference, workshop, and that way you're not relegated to just like having strings, right? This feels a lot like you have some basically type checking along with other things, which makes this pretty great. And so with this, the reason this is great is because when you want to actually have things triggered based on data records, I found personally, again, after looking at both, that Airtable is better for these sort of automation pieces, especially when they're kind of more predefined use cases. So for example, you'll see here that I have a basic automation here that like when a record has a certain matching certain conditions. So in this case, like my public events, and I create like a new one with like the certain criteria, it will go into my Google Calendar and update my public calendar that you can actually subscribe to. And that's all managed automatically. But if you were to do this with Notion, on the other hand, you'd have to build the authentication, you'd have to build the integration. And like, while that could be a fun learning experience, we do have to always, like, I think one of the hardest things as developers is getting caught up in the potential of what we can do versus the actual like practicality of like, what is the impact that will result? And so don't get me wrong, if my goal is to write a tutorial on how to like do Google OAuth and like get things hooked up, using Notion as a base because that thing doesn't just exist is amazing. But for the purposes of like, if I need to like solve a problem, in this case, like I have a lot of like little admin tasks like this that I need to update. It's nice to know that someone else is managing this code base. They've taken care of the authorization. I just click a couple buttons and then I can move on. So again, measuring impact versus the merely being excited about what's possible is really key, I think, when making those trade-offs. So yeah, so if you're looking for automations, 100%, I totally recommend check Airtable for integrating with data. And the other thing too, I just discovered, so a little bit of tip here, is that you can actually run like custom JavaScript based on the hooks. And so in this case, what you'll see here is that I'm actually just saying that like when a specific record is updated, like all my public events, I'm actually doing a fetch to my build hook in Netlify, and it will actually trigger like a build inside of like, so basically it'll re-update my schedule page, which is amazing because previously I was using Zapier to do this because I wasn't even aware of this. So when my coworker Phil and I were talking today, he was like, can we just do this? And it worked exactly as we expect. So yeah, we'll probably do another Airtable deep dive because I've been very happy with the work that they've done. And as far as like, even if you eventually get past the free tier, I feel like the price is very good for what you get. But anyways, I see in the chat, Notion is back up. Okay, fingers crossed. Here we go, people. Let's do this. Hold on to your butts. Fantastic. Woo! All right, so vamping a little bit was good, and to be honest, that was stuff I wanted to talk about anyways. So, Notion, what exactly is Notion? So again, without going too deep, I'm spending 5 minutes tops on this. What you see here is it looks like a rendered HTML page. In fact, let me go over here actually to my blog post one. This just looks like a page with the block of text, but really actually when you click inside of it, you have the ability to do different things. So for example, I can come in here and I can say, I want to add an H1. So I can do like just like the markdown way. So like the hash symbol with the space and like my title, but I can do like double hashtag heading 2. And then if I really want to, I can use the / in order to see, this is backslash. And you can see there's a bunch of different data types in here. And this is one of the things that makes Notion very cool is that you can do things like I can create a list right now. So I can be like apple, banana, cherry. But then, you're like, okay, this is like a glorified markdown editor. But then because of its kind of rich graphical interface, I could like drag this, I can put it under here, or I can drag this and like nest it under. And then this way, like when I move the apple, it moves all of banana. And this is very cool. And then on top of that, you're like, okay, well, again, a lot of markdown editors do that. The big moment for me when I first learned about Notion was that like, what if you're the kind of person that's like, okay, well, I want to do like, this is my first draft over here. And then you know what? I'm going to have like a second draft. I want to do it side by side. Well, actually with Notion, that's fairly easy to do. All you would do is you drag it over here, and then it creates 2 different columns. So all of a sudden I can take this, put it under here, and then, let's just say the next 3 paragraphs here can be put under this column. And like, so in just a couple of clicks and a quite intuitive user interface, I have this actually nicely laid out page that has these things laid out in different ways, and I can compose these to add different things, different colors. So, I can add a little line here. And what's great about this is that right now, and I'm going to go ahead and do that, I'm just share this to the web, copy this over, and so I'm going to drop this in the Twitch channel. / whoops, my bad. And so here, if you go ahead and open this up now, you'll actually be able to come in and actually view the page, which is very, very cool. And so I think this is one of the things that made Notion incredibly powerful and intuitive up front because people are already aware of editors. They want to be able to change things visually, And you can do a lot with this, to be honest, that allows you to really, like, it's very empowering, and like, especially the first time you use Notion compared to other text editors where I was relegated to like fixed layouts. That said, let me go ahead now, let me restore this. Let me delete that. There we go. Let's delete that block and delete that block. Here, we just have kind of flat Notion pages. And so I'll, for those who might be new to it, I'll leave you to play around with that. But the next part of like my 5-minute spiel is that Notion has relational databases, which to me is basically the most powerful feature. And so inside of the Notion workspace that I have here I'll just call this blog database. And what I'm going to do is, rather than just create a page of this, I'm going to use the table. And you'll notice that the heading actually does say database. And so here, this actually should look really familiar, because this is actually what Airtable was looking like, where you have this ability to do structured data. So every row is its own unique data piece. And so here, for example, I can just similarly, let's do like before, right? We have a select drop down, right? So here, I'll say, how about what type is this? So, we'll have two different types. We'll have like short form and we'll have long form. And so now this means that going forward, I have like this autocomplete for me, when I'm choosing things. And so what we can do now is what we can do with the databases is that it allows us really, like, basically it enabled us to do relational databases, which is extremely powerful. We won't be able to get into that today, but basically, if you're familiar with that terminology, just know that like you can start doing relationships, equations, formulas. It's quite powerful. But what we want is we're trying to build a CMS, right? And so a database is actually a great way to attach information to a page, is basically the way to look at it. Because right now you have these individual pages here regarding Notion like as a page, right? Like here we can see here that we have like a title and we have the body. But if you're like wanting to add any sort of structured content to it, structured attributes, now you start to have a problem, because I guess you can be like, well, I'm going to create like a heading here called meta. I'll say that everything under here is body. And then I'll be like, oh, publish date. And, I'll even try to use, Notion's thing. I'll be like next week. And so, whoops, that's not what I wanted. How about next Monday? Here we go, next Monday. So you can try to do stuff like this. But here's the thing. Even if we're successful in pulling all this, we will be successful. I'm confident in that. Like, that's something you're going to need to parse. This is not structured data in terms of like, you can't make sure that all your blog posts have a certain data type. Like, this is a bad way of managing stuff over time. So this is why the database piece of Notion is huge, because this makes all the difference between just being just some blob of data and having some schema, like database schema attached to it. So in this particular case, if we were to do like the database form, which is what we're going to be working with, we're going to take blog post 1 and we're going to add it as a row to this database. And so what I'm going to do here, let me copy all of blog post 1 actually. I'm going to copy it over. And so, the nice thing about this too, if I wasn't clear about this earlier, is that this is Markdown, at least when it copies out. There are some things that will be a little bit more unique to like Notion at times, but for the most part, it is Markdown, which is quite nice from like a backwards compatibility bit. Now, you'll see here that now we have blog post. But the difference here is, and let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and split this side by side so you can actually really get a feel for why this is different. So blog post 1, let me refresh blog post 1. Let me open blog post 1 here. So what you're going to see here now is that blog post 1, although funny enough, it's still showing the 2-column one, which is fine. It looks similar, except you'll see that there's all this metadata here regarding your blog post. And this is kind of what we were kind of faking earlier with the H2. But really what we want to be able to do here is now do things like, well, I want a date. And the date here is going to be publish on. Like, what date are you going to publish on? So now I can click here. You can see I can click on, I want it on the 3rd. And then I'm going to include a time, because this will be helpful. And I'm going to say that I want to publish it at 12 p.m., for example. And then that's it. And what's beautiful about this, I just saw the chat. Apparently Notion is down again, so I cannot refresh. That would probably explain why when I refresh this page, it retrieved a cache version. But this is okay. We're not gonna touch this right now. I can do my explanation here. So what's great about this, as you can see, is that it is still very, very easy to use. Again, rearranging The elements on this, the attributes on the page are super easy. More importantly, if I don't want to see a certain element, I don't have to delete it. I can actually just hide the property and be like, hide it when it's empty or always hide. And so there's a lot they really did with the UX, to be honest, that I am extremely impressed with. And I'd love to see more people embrace this kind of flexibility and customization when it comes to managing documents. How's it going, Burgeons? Yeah, so I see it too. So if you didn't notice, in the upper right, it says saving and it says 100% complete, but someone is mismanaging the state on that one, because if it were really 100%, it would say saved. Clearly not 100%. So state management can be tricky, right? Maybe they need to look into David Corseed's X state to make sure that these kind of things don't happen. But yeah, I would say that hover state is misleading. Okay. So I guess I'll do a little bit of vamping here because again, Notion is having some issues, but what I can tell you is that, so what we have here now is we have the ability to add the sort of update a schema along with our data, but have the free form format of like a WYSIWYG. And I think bringing those two together is what, again, I don't have like the exhaustive history on note editors and that kind of thing, but I would say I think Notion would be largely attributed, call it in history, as helping to really popularize this and make it more mainstream for people, so that people start to have that experience of expecting this level of control. And so as a contrast, so for those who don't know, like I'm big on the sort of Obsidian workspace as far as creating markdown files and sort of graph relationships between markdown files. But one of the weaknesses of Obsidian, right? And for those who know me, that's shocker, right? I'm talking about weaknesses of Obsidian. I will say is that right now there isn't a good way to attach notes to specific schemas. And I've pitched this on the Obsidian office hours that I usually hold on Thursdays. But basically, I really wish there was a way to be like, this kind of note is a blog. And therefore, all blogs have these attributes, and then like make sure they're always updated to have those things. And so, and the more I think about it, this comes similarly from my experience with Notion and the ability to say like, hey, I have all this stuff. I want to freeform, I want to write, I want to link, I want to think. Then when I want to structure things, give me that ability to go, all of this stuff, please share the same thing. Okay, so I think we're good now. I noticed this page reloaded with the right metadata. So I'm going to try, but I don't think it's going to work. Okay, what I want to, yeah, it's okay. So the left is, I'm going to keep the left alone. Okay, in the meantime, we have our blog posts. We have at least one blog post in the site. So we're still good on time. Excellent. So even with Notion's downtime, we are still making good progress. I'm actually kind of curious though, what is the status page on Notion? All right, so that's good. This I'm gonna leave alone. API, SDK, we'll deal with that in a second. Service interruption, yep. All right, well, that's okay because we are gonna keep moving forward. I think this should be totally fine. Okay. So, getting started with the Notion API. Let's go ahead and follow a couple of things as far as getting started with it. So, we can't create... Okay, integration is going to wait for a second. What I want to do, though, is get the SDK in, because that's something that should be separate from Notion's actual uptime. And so we have an actual JavaScript client for the Notion SDK, which is nice. So let's go ahead and work on this to start. Guillaume is like so unlucky. You know, I will say though, for those who've been thinking about doing live streaming and like, or even like one of the fears of live coding is exactly what I'm going through right now, which is what happens when the thing you're planning to do basically like breaks. And so there are a lot of ways to mitigate this. So this is a little bit of an ad lib for like people who are, you know, doing content production, that kind of thing. Is that one of the, I believe actually Sarah was the one I first heard about this from actually, who's in the chat, about like some people, what they do is they actually record the session in advance. This is particularly useful for, I think, when you're doing conference talks and say Wi-Fi is not as reliable and you have this sort of set number of steps and things you're trying to demo that you can show. That's one way to do it. Obviously, one of the joys of doing things live streams and like the fun of it is that it really should be live, right? Like if I were playing a video for you, I think that would take a little bit of the magic away from you. So it's nice to have the kind of spontaneous interaction. So really, live streams deal with like the ultimate risk of this kind of, call it, style of content production, which is what happens when things go wrong. And for me, while, don't get me wrong, this continues to terrify me each day. I will tell you that one time I was teaching a workshop at a conference, and I was wanting to tell everyone how awesome the Vue CLI was, and that when you set it up, it's super easy. And that day, like I think it was that morning, they upgraded a dependency that I wasn't aware of. And so when I had the class run like the init and the setup and stuff, everything broke. So you can imagine my horror when it was like, this is gonna make your life so easy, and then everyone's like, or like half the people were like, oh, it doesn't work, and that was not fun. But on the upside, the reason why I've started to kind of embrace these kind of scenarios, and less and less time is becoming less daunting for me, is that it does really do a lot, like, because let's face it, right? When we're coding, when we're doing things, and I don't know, call it a life philosophy, things don't always go our way, and that's just what's going to happen. But what we can do, like for me, this is like, call it emotional practice for like, now that things aren't going well, how can I adapt? How can I improvise? And more importantly, how can we continue to create value? And in some ways, if you think about it, right, a lot of times when you're doing feature development in coding, you have these ideals of what you think the solution is going to be, and you're going to run into roadblocks, right? Whether it's the backend has some limitation, you don't have the budget, you have a constraint for XYZ reason, what do? You get creative. And so I think what I like about the spontaneity and of the live coding and doing stuff like this is that it gives me more of that practice to just kind of move forward and make the best of the situation, kind of it. So I love it. Sarah here in the chat, it makes the demigods happy to have a backup sacrifice. Well, apparently I had no sacrifice for today, so the live stream gods are very, very upset for me. I think next time I'll need to sacrifice a repo I built or something. Thesis here, be prepared to convert a building stuff stream to a talk show stream. No. We are building something, okay? I'm gonna find a way. Even if I like take the small gaps in between Notion's uptime to make this work, we're gonna make it happen. Okay, switching back over to the screen. So, all right, so I think, okay, I am in camera, great. Let's go ahead and install stuff. All right, so this is the Bencode Zen, that's the wrong one. All right, Nuxt Notion blog, most excellent. Yarn add NotionHQ client. Let's go ahead and have it do that. Okay, we're gonna need an OAuth, wow, I can't talk. OAuth access token. So what we're gonna do here is, this is good because while Notion continues to be finicky, that one was good. Is this one back up? Oh, it's up. Okay, hurry up. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're going to get our auth token. All right, let's set it up. So inside of the blog database, as we can see here, actually, you know, I'm quickly gonna grab, this is blog post number 2. There are a lot more interesting blocks in here. That's why I wanted to add this as an example. So here, I'll do here, and then blog post 2. Okay, we are gonna speed develop this, and then I'm gonna say publish on the 15th, and we'll say at the time of also 12 p.m. Okay, great. So the first thing we wanna do is inside of here, wait, database lock. Oh no. Okay, hang on a sec. Okay, so Notion API with authentication, let's see, getting started, is that we need to do integrations. So I'm gonna open up this page here, and hopefully this works. Okay, perfect. So we have a new integration. Let's go ahead and set that up real quick. New integration, I'm gonna call this Nuxt Notion blog bot. Make it very obvious what it is. I don't care about the logo. It will be assigned to Ben's Notion. So Ben's Notion, in case you're wondering, this is a new space, basically a sandbox area I created. So in just telling you right now, it's okay. Like the keys, I have sandboxed this, so we're okay. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead, this is our secret token right here. Oh, you can't even see all of it anyway, so even if you wanted to be malicious, that would be fairly tricky to do. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually take this now, and we're not gonna put it in a .m file, which is what you typically do. This is where, if you're new to this, Netlify environment variables are the shiznits. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do initialize the site to use Netlify. And so we're gonna create and configure a new site. It'll be under the Bencode Zen team, and this will be the Nuxt Notion blog. And then great, no one owns that, so I have it now. We'll take that and generate it. So what I'm doing here is basically setting up some basic scaffolds so that we can utilize Netlify's CLI tools to make our lives so much easier. So to show you what I mean, what we're going to do is let me first by opening up the admin site for the Netlify. So you can see Nuxt Notion blog. So right now it's going ahead and kicking off an initial deploy. But inside of here, what's really nice about the Netlify CLI is that when we're in here, we can actually manage things like environment variables in a way that's shared between your entire team. So that if in the future we actually need to share this, people will automatically, as long as they're authenticated correctly to the site, they'll actually get the environment variables automatically pulled in, which might seem like a small thing, but as someone who's worked on a lot of different teams and team sizes, I can't tell you how many teams, especially prior to this sort of strategy, would just have a .m file that one of the developers had, and your job as a new developer was to find someone who had a working .m file and then grab it and copy it from them. And as we know, that is a pretty brittle system for keeping that working. So anyways, Notion API key is what I'm going to call it, and paste all that stuff in there, and we're going to save. Okay, so we have our secret here, and now we're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and start up our environment. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run netlify dev, shortened to NTL. So if you hear me see netl, short for netlify. And what you'll notice here is that when I'm using the netlify dev, let me bring that back up, it's actually injecting the Notion API key right into the development environment, which is awesome because this means that now when I do process.env, I can actually refer to it, and it's now basically namespace, and it will never be committed to the repo. And this is amazing. So I absolutely love Netlify environment variables for letting you manage it this way. And again, absolutely fantastic when it comes to team stuff. Okay, so now that we have the API key, I think that's it. Okay, cool. If this is as easy as I think it is, we're going to go ahead and let me bump this over to the left. Let's bump VS Code to the right. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Bum, bum. All right, so this is open. So let me switch this over because I think more people are probably going to expect to lead left to right in this regard. So we're going to go ahead and let's go into our index page. So basically, this is your home page. And to show you everything is working, we're going to go ahead and delete the tutorial. We're going to say, hello. Why is my Emmet not working? Oh, there we go. Hello, everyone, exclamation point. And if that, you see it's reloading over here in the lower right. And magic, everything works. Great. Now, while Notion API hopefully is still up, fingers crossed, we're going to go ahead and, okay, we have our integrations here. Not worried about that. Not worried about that either. Where is the Nuxt API, or Notion API docs? I think I had it for a second. All right, most excellent. Get started. All right, so we have the integration. That's fine. Share a database. Okay, so a must spare certificate. Okay, in order to be accessed to the API. Okay, so what that means to me is that inside of here for our Notion. Hey, Jacob, how's it going? Glad that meetings are finally done. Okay, so check this out. When you want to actually share a page with Notion, you typically just go to the share link, and kind of like I did earlier, you reveal the page and you get a URL. But what you'll notice here is that we actually have a bot that has been assigned the authentication and everything here already inside of the share. And this to me is another brilliant kind of DX that they've done with this, because it feels like I'm just sharing it with another person. It's not something I have to go through a lot of hoops and things to basically set up. So I can go, okay, well, I want the Nuxt blog to basically have invite privileges. And so now that it has it, basically my authentication key automatically now has access to this database, which is awesome. That was super easy to do. So now that we have that, we've shared it. And now, let's see, it says it wants the ID. And then once we get the ID, we can get the ID. Let's see, database ID, that's fine. Nuxt pages create, I don't want to create an item. I just want to fetch the item. Okay, that's fine. Let's copy this much stuff first. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do that when the component is mounted. So we're going to have to run an async function on this. We're going to say a couple of things. So let's import from NotionHQ client. Great, thank you, autocomplete. and client. I know I could copy from the left, but I actually do find that the writing it has a nice, like actually doing it myself, has a nice like muscle memory associated with it for like just making it a little bit more tangible from like a learning perspective. So I called it Notion API key is what I called it. And so here we have our Notion client now. And so now that we have this, hopefully it should be as simple as, you know what the hey, we're gonna do a couple things. Let's see. We're gonna use the database ID, and the database ID, if from what I skimmed earlier, is this string right here. So that should be the string that we want. And then again, let's just follow the example just to make sure things actually do work. So we're gonna go ahead and say that, okay, fine, I'll use const database ID out here as well. There's my ID. Again, sandbox area, so don't worry, not a big deal. And then we'll just say const response equals await notion.pages.create. The parent of it is this database ID. Great. And then otherwise, we will say that the properties that it gets, we're just going to say title. Whoa. All right, fine. That looks a little weird to me, but I'm just going to copy and paste it because what's the worst that'll happen? And then now that that's here and response, we are just going to log response. That's all we're going to do. Okay. So text is not defined. Oh, okay. Content. This is my content. Save. So if this worked, okay, fetch did break. That's a start. Require has been blocked by core's policy. Did not pass the access control check. That's weird to me. From origin, it should have, this is an outside fetch. Why would that break? API Notion page, strict origin when it's not letting me fetch. Dun, 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 dun. It looks like to me then that something's funky. Let's see. List users response async await notion.users.list. JSON conventions, code samples, SDK. Not really worried about that. What other guides do you have? Can you give me a guide that would work? JavaScript client. New client auth. That's what I did. Make a request. Returns a promise. That's fine. Await Notion databases query. Okay, how about this? Let's just, what if it doesn't like that? I'm going to do this instead. Let's just query all this stuff. We already have the database ID here. So not even going to worry about any filters. So that's that. Please don't glitch out on me now. Log my page. Why is it not happy with this? Database. Oh, I have a quote here. Okay, that's good. I'm assuming I'm going to get the same cores issue. Yep, I am right. Okay, so if we're taking a look at here, we have a cores policy pre-flight check from 8888. Is this a Netlify thing? Let's see. Maybe it is Netlify cores. Hold on. Netlify CLI dev cores. I've never had this problem before. API Notion.so doesn't allow in-browser core. Oh, it's not me? Oh, yeah. Okay, how do you authenticate? Oh, okay, let me close some tabs actually. Okay, authorization. Get authorization bearer. Internal public OAuth. Not an admin. I am an admin, not concerned. Sure. Client ID redirect state. Only one access token granted for any given workspace. Fine. User grants access. Sure. Access these pages. Fine. It's weird though. You should be able to call it from node. Oh. All right. Ha. Well, then in that case, I have a solution for this. We are going to, so typically you're like, oh, well, okay. Normally you might be like, oh, well, I'm stuck. I need Node. But if you're using Netlify, you have serverless functions, which allow you to call things from Node. So to show you how this would work is, I was actually thinking about doing this anyways, but this just speeds it up now for me, is that if you think about it another way, what I'd like to do from the front end is I'd like to hit an API endpoint. I'd like to call API/Notion, for example, and that actually API/blog, right? And the blog would return all the blog posts. That's what I would ideally like to hit. So fetch from /API/blog. Okay, that's what the ideal is. And so what I'm going to do here is that Netlify serverless functions, again, at least for me, the simplest way to get started with them and to think about them is they're API endpoints that you can hit, that you control inside of your front end repo. So what we can do is we can do blog.js. And inside of blog.js, what we're going to do is we're going to write a little bit of Node code. So exports.handler equals an async function. And inside of here, this is where we're going to run all of this fun stuff. And so, I need to actually, you know what? Let me split this window view real quick so that it's easier to see. Cons client, all this stuff. Okay, fine. I can deal with this. So here we go. I'm going to actually move all this stuff, though, into the function. Save. Okay, so we have a couple of things here. 1, 2, 3. And then, assuming this calls correctly, let's go return status code 200. And then the body of it will be basically a JSON.stringify my page. Okay, so if this works as I hope, we can say const response equals await fetch .netlify/function/blog. Then for the response, we'll take the response and JSONify it. Then we'll log out the response. I think I did something funny. What did I not terminate? Then, well, that's wrong. / that should be right. Oh, there we go. It's just I had hit enter. Okay, great. Fetch isn't a Node API. Oh, yeah, don't worry. I'm good, yeah. I don't think we actually need the fetch here because it's already been installed. So to see if this even works, again, I'm just kind of going at it. Okay, so couple problems. Get blog, exports handler, Netlify dev. Let me look at something real quick. Where? Okay, what happened here? It did not cannot use import statement outside of a module. What? This should be fine. Hang on. All right, that's weird. Let's reload this. Okay, so that Notion API key was injected, loaded the function blog. So that's our serverless function that I was telling you about. So that got loaded. The question is, did I write something incorrectly? Okay, listening on 3000. Wonderful. Great. Okay, server 1000N. Okay, what if, not going to worry about this right now. Let's not even return this stuff. Let's just return stringify message hello. This should work on its own without anything else. So, okay, something wrong with the fetch then. I'm not liking what I'm seeing here. Hey, how's it going, Prince? Good to see you. The function, what was it? Renamed to MJS. So luckily, actually, Guillaume, the nice thing about the Netlify functions is that you don't have to worry about that kind of compilation. Just doing normal JS files actually works just fine. Okay, here's the response. Great. Yup. That looks good. So then I take the response, res.json. And then now we should... Is it not like res.json? Did I mess something up? Return status code async. What am I messing up? Oh, I know I'm messing up something simple here. Async function has no await. Okay, fine. Even if that's the case, exports.handler should be it. Hold up. What? I always seem to get It usually takes me like a second. That's not what I want at all. Functions overview. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Give me JavaScript. Exports.handler async function event context. Yep. So hello world here. Async function event exports.handler return status code json.stringify hello world. Yep. JSON.stringify body. Yep. Exports handler. That should be it. That should be it. Why is it not happy with? Oh, here we go. Now it's suddenly happy. Oh, okay. That's fine. All right. So the blog is returning a code, but package.json should already include our NotionHQ client. So it didn't like this line. That's what I think is weird. Like here, it's saying client is declared but never used. Okay, fine. So let's say I do all this. Nothing should break from that end. But it doesn't like it on this time, and why is it? Can I use import statement outside of modules, extract? Oh, yeah. What am I talking about? Sorry, this is where, const client equals right. Notion equals require. I'm silly. I think I know what Guillaume was referring to now. Async, and then I can do, I think, Notion.client. I think should do it. Nope. Apparently not. That's good. That's good. Log my page. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Dun. Refresh. Okay, much better. So now things are fine. Things are not yelling as much. So now we're not going to stringify just a hello world. We're going to stringify the actual my page response. And so when I hit it now, response, here we go. We have a list. We have results. Excellent. Okay, we are in business. We are so in business. Okay, now the fun begins. So what we have here, okay, okay, let's recap what just happened. So what we learned, as sort of Guillaume had sort of lovingly tried to remind me, which I kept forgetting, is that I was using the import statement, which is from like ES6 and not part of the node syntax right now. So instead of doing like import client from NotionHQ, I'm just importing basically, actually, can I refactor this real quick? I'm gonna try this real quick. This might break, but this also might just work. I think it still works. Okay, great. So I'm basically doing something similar here where I'm basically destructuring out client from the library using the require syntax rather than import export. Then from here, I can go inside and now we can basically use the script that Notion has provided for us. Does blog.mjs work? I don't know, Yum. You know what? We're live streaming, so let's try. What's the worst that'll happen? So you're saying that when we rename it to MJS, save it. And so now if I refresh, I think things will break. Yup. And so you're claiming that now I can do the import client from NotionHQ client, save. And then if I refresh, nope. Looks like MJS, at least as far as I can tell at this moment, is not viable. So, oh, okay. Apparently we can also do EJS stuff. But we're not going to, or ES build stuff. We're not going to do that right now, though. But that is certainly a good topic for a future date. So let's reframe this, save that, cancel. Let me delete that. Let me open this. So then we're going to go ahead and const. And then we're just going to require it instead. And now we should be golden. All right, list is here. Excellent. So what we've done here, again, is we've basically set up like in a light way, which almost looks like, honestly, like a JavaScript utility function, we've created an endpoint. So now that we have the Notion blog, what we can do here is we can take that response and we can say, all right, so when it's mounted, we're going to have a list of blog posts. So I'll say blog posts is an empty array. And then once it's mounted, we're gonna say this dot blog post equals response. And to show that this works, we're gonna go ahead, just do a quick main here. And nope, we're not even gonna li, we're just gonna spit it out. We're gonna spit out blog post here in the p tag. So if everything works out correctly, boom, magic. Let's see. Well, Guillaume, I just saw your chat. We can I'll definitely make a point to either one, look into that and see if any of that piece will be nicer. But yes, you're totally right. That would be a nice DX enhancement on the netlify functions. But what we have here is pretty exciting, because if you can see here, we actually have it. We have the list of things. So more importantly, I've realized it's not even just response. I can do response.list. And now that we have the list, we can say for every list item, v for, I'll just call it blog in blog post. And the key will be the blog I see. I'm pretty sure there's an ID that I'm seeing here. And then let's go ahead and list out just the blog itself. So now if we take a look at this. Oh, did I break something? I broke something. What did I break? Response.results. Ah, okay. Response.results. Yum is so fast. Refresh. Oh, that wasn't it either. Okay, hold up. I got too gung-ho. What did I mess up? Not list. Oh, like this? Oh, is that what you're saying? Okay, here we go. Yep, you were right. All right, Guillaume with a clutch win right there. Okay, great. So you see here we have all our different things. So let's just even play around with this a little bit. These will be the H2. We'll say blog. Let's see. Last edited time, null, parent, icon, parent, type, database ID, fine, I don't care. Where is the name? Name, title, type. I should have a blog post 1 somewhere. There's no, oh, blog post, okay. Where's blog post 2? Blog post 2 is here. So it's interesting, there's a plain text. God, this is hard to inspect, actually, I realize. So let's go to, funny enough that Guillaume is actually on the chat, let's go to our trusty dev tools and let's see what we can find out. So inside of our Nuxt here, we have Nuxt and Nuxt, anonymous content, blog post array. Okay, great. Created time, properties, that's what we want. Properties name, title, plain text. Oh, that is a mouthful. Okay, that's fine. It'll work. It'll do. So we want blog.properties.name.title.plain text. So if that worked out, we should see. That's interesting. Did it not like that? Title. Oh man, Guillaume is so fast with his eagle eyes like a hawk. I appreciate it so much. Interesting that the title has multiple ones. That I think is interesting. Like I thought you have one title, but anyways, okay. Blog post 1, blog post 2, and then the only thing is though, none of the content is being fetched, but that's okay. I think because the goal here is for us to fetch a list of databases, of items, which is great. So now actually to show that this even works correctly, let's go ahead and fingers crossed that this works. We're gonna add blog post 3 and I'll tag this long form and we'll publish it on the 17th and we'll also have an end time of 12 p.m. And if all goes well and I refresh this page, check it out. Blog post 2, blog post, and blog post 3. So this is good. So we have the ability now to have a list of pages. And so you know what, to do this just a little bit more fun, to show you again just why Vue is so awesome, we can have the blog.properties.publish. Oh wait, publish on is a string. So I think I need to do it like this. I think if I do it like this, this should now give me a date. Okay, ID. Wow, publish on date start. Okay, better. All right, I'm still gonna print out the blog itself just so we can have a little bit more rich data here. Excellent. So again, to show you why Vue is amazing, we're just gonna go ahead and let's new date this property real quick so that it's a little bit easier to read. So if we do that, there you go, Friday, September 17th. But we want to make sure that we sort this actually via the chronological order. Let's say latest, so like the most recent one, all the way to the oldest. So a way we can easily do this is do a computed property here and say most recent, I'll just say blog posts. And then here it will be a function. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take blog posts here and we're going to sort it by A and B. And then I'm going to go ahead and do, normally I would just return it automatically in one line, but this is probably going to be a bit hard to do. So I think it should be as simple as date A equals A.properties, and then B will be this. So B.properties, so these are the two start dates, and then we return B, date A, date B minus date A. Let's see. Oh, whoops, I need this. This dot sort. Oh, what did I not like? Unexpected side effect. What did I do? What did I break? Bum, 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 bum. Oh, you have to slice as well? Interesting that it would have me. Oh, right. Because it doesn't. Interesting. Okay, well, that's the fun little post that we'll have to deal with. Okay, D, B minus A. But this doesn't seem to be doing quite what I... Oh, I know why. Ha! Silly me. Most recent blog posts. Right. Okay, so as Guillaume kind of clarifies here inside of the chat, so the reason why we don't want to call sort directly on our blog post reactive data piece is that we are actually... It basically will mutate the original one. And we don't want to do that. We want to keep sort of more functional programming paradigms and keeping our state kind of going from one slice to another. Hence why the slice, as long as you don't pass any arguments to it, basically makes a copy of it. And that is the copy we are basically doing a mutation or like a sort on. That's what's being returned. So now the reason that's not being showing up is because that's what we need to actually show inside of our rendering here. And now as you can see here, it works exactly as we expect. And so now if I flip this to date A minus date B, this should now flip it. And we have 1, 2, 3, just like that. And sorting our post was quite simple in that regard, now that that's been done. Okay, how are we doing on time? We still have a little bit of time. So we're going to go ahead and actually dive just a little bit more in that we're going to go ahead and say, now that we have this, we'd like to be able to actually fetch the content from it. So when I click on blog posts, I'd want to actually be able to fetch the actual blog. So in this particular case, what we're going to need to do now is we're going to need to take a quick look at the Notion API for fetching a specific item now. So working with page content is really what we want. And so here we go. We're going to go ahead and say, yes, I can figure out your data. Can you just tell me how to fetch? Yes, give me the JavaScript. Client ID, fetch. Okay, so fetch the create. No, I don't want to create a page. I just want to get a page. Reading blocks from the page. Appending blocks to the page. I just want to grab stuff. Bum, 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 bum. Maybe it's in the SDK. We will list users. That's fine. Database query. Again, not curious about that. I'm curious about fetching a page individually. Reading blocks. Okay. Reading blocks. Here we go. Reading blocks from a page. Great. All right. Block. Wait. Page content can be read from receiving the retrieve block children endpoint. Endpoint returns a list of children received. Oh, no. Well, reading blocks from a page, but how do I fetch the page object, though? I think I need to... Oh, man. This is what I don't like. I want, like, you would think that reading the page would be fairly straightforward. All right, so this is creating the page. Notion pages. Click on retrieve block children. Okay, so here's the endpoint. Query page. Okay, here, retrieve a page. Let's start with this because this is what we need to prove works. So inside of here, retrieve a page. Excellent. I want the SDK for JavaScript. Page ID, pages retrieved, page ID, log response. Excellent. Okay, so what we're going to do here now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to do just like what we did earlier. We're going to come in here inside of our functions here, and we're just going to have a blog, or we're going to say post.js, and this way just keep it a little bit easier. Exports.handler. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to copy this over here real quick. And then we're going to go ahead and, because we're short on time, let's drop that stuff in. And then it'll receive it. And then we'll stringify the response. Page ID, that's, let's see, we have a sample page ID. We should have one. Here's the page. Page ID here is this one. That's our page ID. So if this works, when we hit this endpoint, we should actually see what we get from the Notion API. So now that it's mounted, we're going to actually add another, I'll call it post response. And this is where we're going to await fetch. And again, we're going to hit our other endpoint, netlify functions post. And then I just want to console log out the response, post response. So if this works as I intend, it did, which is excellent. Then the response here is in here. Oh, I didn't JSONify it, did I? Dot then res.json save. So this should be a little bit better now. Post response. Let me bump this up a little bit. Actually, post response is in here. Post is an object with page created parent copy. Properties here, tags, name, cont. Where is the content though? Ah, okay. Guillaume's already 2 steps ahead of me. We won't get the content. That's weird to me. I'm not gonna lie. Why would I want to retrieve block children? Okay, so it's saying that identifier for blocks, start cursor, page size, Notion version. The content are blocked. So I'm familiar. Okay, so actually, let's explain. We still have time. So inside of, sorry, I'm trying to find my. Oh, I don't have Notion up. Okay, so inside of Notion, one of the things that make Notion a little bit trickier to use compared to more traditional CMSs is that everything in here is not just plain text. Because as we mentioned before, there is stuff in here that you might want to like bold and like you want to like do stuff with. And more importantly, we have a bunch of different content blocks that Notion does use. And so as a result, every one of these pieces is considered a block. So this is what Guillaume is referring to inside of the chat. So you see you have text, you have page, you have this kind of stuff. Now, my only thing though is that I would have, I guess, from a developer perspective, I would have thought that inside of my Notion blog, that when I actually logged out the response from the post, I half expected that there would at least be like children blocks or something, because like, at least as far as I can tell, I can't tell what the relationship is here, because even properties, you can see name, publish on tags, type. None of that stuff indicates to me there's some sort of relationship with the blocks we're about to be looking for. So that's like, I don't know, call it a small piece of feedback. So to Acria, maybe part of the problem is that the blocks are recursive. I guess that could be fair. That is fair. So if we're retrieving the block though, and this is part of the problem. Okay, so retrieving block children. This means you would need to know what the block is though. But here's the thing, and this is why, if you're calling block children list block ID, is a page technically then a block ID, I guess? Is that what makes it a... Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting. That's what I feel like too. It almost like is telling me retrieve a block. Because again, we have this notion of pages, but if pages are blocks and blocks are pages, why do we even do this? But okay, what's the worst that'll happen, right? So we're going to go ahead and inside of post, we're going to switch out the endpoint. We're not going to... Where's the code example? Oh man, is it not available on mobile? That's frustrating. Still not available. Okay, fine. Okay, so I need page ID response. Okay, we're gonna take this piece. And we're gonna go ahead and replace this. And instead of block ID, I'm just gonna do page ID. And we're gonna see what happens. So now if we refresh, post response now has a bunch of stuff. It's a list of objects and it's an empty array. I think this makes sense because the page ID is not actually a block. So, stumped. No, not stumped. I still have time. I am still optimistic. Okay, let's think about this. So we're able to retrieve a page, clearly. And actually, when we update a page, we know that we can update different properties in it, which is fine. That's great. I'm happy with that. But the problem here then is that... see, look, here we go. To fetch page content. Okay, don't get me wrong. This is exactly what new properties conform. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay, so this is what Guillaume was sort of talking about in advance, which is like we can only update properties in this, but then block children. Once again, where the heck do I get the block ID? Because to me, this is what I like. This is kind of my criticism, is that if you know that the schema is all pages have a content block, there should at least, at the bare minimum, you would think that the root of this page ID, is the root block element for this stuff. Like all of these block children are pieces of this larger page. So it's why it's a little frustrating to me, at least, from what I can tell, that it's not giving me anything. There's no has more or anything. The reference says a page is a type of block too. Once again, page is a type of block. Maybe you're talking about retrieving a page? Oh, maybe the page object is what you're saying? So if I go to page object. If we look at this, start cursor, list databases. Wow, it is slow. I've been trying to click on page object this whole time. Property values, all pages have a parent. If it's a database, that's fine. Pages content is available as blocks. Content can be read with retrieved block children and appended. Fine. Blocks can be paragraph, yes. Only text-like immediate. Oh. That's good to know. Oh, unsupported. Interesting. Okay, we'll figure out what that means in a little bit. ID for the block, the type, has children, block type. Every block object has contained a type. That's fine. Heading 1 blocks, heading 2 blocks. Yeah, sure. I need a little bit more than this. Maybe retrieve the identifier block if a block contains a block ID is this. Notion.blocks.retrieve. So yeah, I always thought, so I've always understood the concept that pages are blocks, blocks are actually technically can be pages too. Oh, well, sorry. A page is a block, but a block is not necessarily a page. I understand that fundamentally. But this does mean to me then why... Okay, let me retrieve the specific block. Maybe that's my mistake. Maybe trying to get a list of the children already is a mistake. So blocks.retrieve. We're just going to try this endpoint now. And now that we've done the retrieve endpoint, we just pass the block ID. Great. Just like that. And that's what we're going to do. Okay, so when we refresh, we get... Okay, we got an ID, child page. Type block, type child page. Prototype object. Where are its children? Okay. Oh, man. I feel like we're so close. Hold on. I think my meeting got pushed. Just make sure real quick. So if I go over a little bit, it's not a big deal. Yes, my meeting got pushed. We are going to figure it out. Okay, the row is a block which has a child page. Okay, so we know... We know that... Now use the ID in response to retrieve block children. Okay, so you're saying... Okay, so what I'm hearing from Guillaume is that... So when I got the block from the Notion, it gave me this ID. So maybe, to his point, again, not obvious to me based on how it's written. Okay, so then post response... So actually, let's actually do this programmatically as we would kind of expect. Once we've retrieved this and we got the response, so let's call this page block data, or page block. I'll call it page block. So the page block has been received. Then we're gonna go ahead and do the block children, which I think is here. Okay. So then we can do await. I'll call this page block children, and this will be the children.list. And then this time we'll feed it the page block dot ID post response. Yep, put in the ID. I'm gonna eliminate the page size, and then we're gonna return the page block children. That should chain it together. Okay, if we refresh, we get a post response, we get a list, and our result is empty. That is so interesting to me. Maybe the page ID is wrong? I guess that's possible. But, I mean, if we're looking at the Nuxt, let me bump this up a bit. This is the ID I retrieved, 98D, ends with 7E7A. This should be it. Oh my gosh. So Guillaume is half right. It's not so much that the ID was wrong, it's that that page is empty right now. Oh, yeah. Sometimes things just happen this way. It is what it is. All right, here. Oh, no, it did not. I don't think that changed anything. Block post object. Oh, here we go. Array list result block ID. Here we go. This is stuff. Oh, man. Okay, so I think was it the same ID the whole time? Okay, anyways. Okay, if Guillaume's theory is correct, we can jump page block, put page ID directly. So let's comment this out, save it. So now when we refresh the page, this should give us everything we need. Okay. So Ben just made a silly mistake, and that's what you get for sometimes for live coding. Okay. This is fine though. This is good because now what we have is we need the ability to pass an ID, which is totally fine. Because what this means then is that we need to have a post and we need to have the context. So hold on, nullify context payload. So here we go. Post. Wait, where is my examples? Examples are so helpful. Are we in the JavaScript? Okay, event dot body. Okay. So what we're gonna do here now, just to make sure this works, is we want the post. Ironically, this is gonna be a little confusing, but we're gonna say that we're gonna use a method of post, and we're going to have a body here of JSON.stringify. And then inside of here, we'll have page ID. And the page ID is, oh, wait, hang on. I'm gonna cut this out because what I wanna do here is I'm gonna add a method here. So inside of methods, I'll say get page content. And then we're gonna pass it in the ID of the page. And so, oh, I realize this is an async method. So this is async. Page ID will be passed the ID. Then once we click on it, then we'll log the response, which is excellent. So to make sure this works, you can see here real quick, we're just gonna turn this H2 into a button, and we're just gonna make it a click. And then the click will be, whoa, I should not have done that. Okay, once it's a button, that's great. Now I only need to here, click button, and then we're gonna go ahead and say get page, what did I call it? Get page content. It will pass in the blog.id. That should do the trick. And then once that's passed over inside of our serverless function, we actually get access to something called an event. So inside of the event, basically, we will be able to get the body from it. So we want specifically the page ID is, I believe, what I called it. So page ID, yes, is what I called it. So if I extract page ID from json.parse event.body, because it's a JSON object that's coming in, that's being fed in, then this should drop to here, that should drop to there, and we should be good. All right, let's see if that worked. So we have that, our button is here, most excellent. Let's clear the console. So the first one, blog post 3, should be empty. So I guess if we click on this, we should see that post response. Post response is a list. List has no object inside. Click on this. Post is a thing. And we get in here. Here you go. Much lengthier. We have a lot more things in it. Although, man, this is going to be fun to render. But I actually think we might actually be able to do it. And then we're going to check this out. Post response in here. Great. So, sorry, that was a bit of a speed run. But what we've done here essentially is we've done a couple of things. One is we've made our serverless function. We've made our serverless function dynamic. How have we done that? Is when a serverless function is called, like you would expect with an API, it will receive certain, like it has certain arguments it receives and payloads that you can use to do more custom things. So following the conventions of HTTP requests, we're doing a post because we want to like add more context. We're not just simply fetching data. We want to say, hey, we want to do something with this unique set of data. So in this case, we want to pass like a payload. And for those who aren't as familiar with HTTP requests, basically you can pass a body onto the request, just like kind of like when you receive a response, there's a body. So you pass a body, which think of it like a payload. And in this case, usually it's a JSON object because we're usually passing something a little bit more complex than just like a string or primitive data type. And from there, this is where I'm going, okay, so from the body, we're going to parse it, right? Because it's when we stringify it at the beginning to pass it through. So we parse it so that we can actually use it. Grab the page ID from it, and this is defined inside of index.view right here. So this is our object structure that we've defined. And then from that, we can use it within our serverless function. So, event.queryStringParameters.id. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm dropping so many gems of knowledge in this. Love it. So that's another way to do it too. So we can also, as sort of Guillaume here in the chat is showing you another way that if we simply want to pass a query string parameter, then this is another way that you can do it without going through the JSON parsing methodology. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead. Guillaume, this was a great call out. Let me drop this inside of resources. A hat tip to Guillaume for seriously all the help in pairing. Okay, so now that we have all this, basically, so I am gonna wrap it up in the next 5 minutes, so this way it doesn't go over too long. What's nice about this is we want to be able to then kind of go into like rendering the content. And so what I'm a bit curious about, honestly, is we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this a little bit on the hackier side. So first, I realized I haven't committed in a little while. So let's do that real quick. We're just going to commit all of these things. And we're going to say set up basic integration between Nuxt and Notion. So again, not the most descriptive commit message, but for now, I think while we're cleaning up and we're just experimenting, I want to make sure that's at least there for y'all if you want to reference it. And so what I want to do instead is that when we fetch the item, we're just going to render on the page. We're not going to jump into a specific page and that kind of load. And so the thing I want to actually just try in the next 5 minutes is this something called view Notion, which I had sort of come across in my research for today's episode. And basically it's an unofficial way to like render out what's inside of Notion. So to show you how this works and for us to try, let's go ahead and yarn add view Notion to our Nuxt build. And I'm gonna actually go ahead and stop this in the meantime. And then while that's installing, we know that we need to go to the Nuxt config in order to basically configure it so that the build modules knows to use it. And we're going to go ahead and add it. So in this case, it'll be view Notion Nuxt like that. And then once that's done, all we need to do is do a block map of the Notion render. Oh, it's interesting. They even have like a get page blocks in this, but I'm not going to bother with that right now because we already have that. So, ooh, I have a endorsement from Guillaume on this one. So I am feeling pretty excited then about the potential of this one. So the way this would work, again, while we're letting that set up, is that assuming this works as intended, it would be Notion renderer block map equals, okay, let's just say block map, and that's it. And so don't worry, block map doesn't exist, so we're just gonna do block map here is an array. So if we save this, nothing should happen. This should be, oh, sorry, my server is not running. We're just gonna, let's see, let me do, this is list of blog posts. And this is gonna be the rendered blog post. So let me save that. Let's see if this even works. That's gonna go ahead and start up. Oh, Guillaume did not know about this package before. So to clarify, Guillaume has not used this yet, it seems. And we're about to see if it works the way I hope it does. So compiling the client, great. Now if I refresh this, ooh, look at the Nuxt.js terminal. Oh man, did not like that. This dependency was not found. Oh, I half expected that to be honestly, I expected that to be installed when, why is it not a dependency? That's a bit odd to me, but okay, I can work with that. We're just gonna yarn add prism.js. Fine, maybe it's a pure dependency, but then wouldn't that just be installed then? Isn't that the whole point, is that you can just, like when I install your package, you install all your dependencies? That's kind of what I would have half expected, because then it's just like you need it, right? So if you need it, it seems kind of odd not to install it. Okay, discovering components, great. Init compiling client. Let's go ahead and see if this made our lives any easier. Let me close that, close that, close that. Let's move this over to the end. Can't be reached. Why can't it be reached? Oh, here we go. Now it's listening. All right, list of blog posts. Excellent. Rendered blog posts. Okay. Excellent. Notion renderer. Failed type check for block. Expected object got array. Okay, sorry about that. Block map is this. Is that happy now? Okay, now it's happy. So if this works the way I think it will, and block map is simply get page blocks, this means that I don't even need to dive it very far. I could theoretically say that once I get all the response, I think this dot block map equals post response. I think that's all we need to do. So if I now get that, hit it, is that gonna do anything? Block map should be hyphenated. Oh, that's a linting thing. That's fine. Did that work though? Fetch successful, but nothing happened. Block map. Refresh. Okay, empty object. Click. Object results. Okay, maybe it doesn't like my own fetching of it, which is fine. I'm willing to play along. You're telling me that if I do get page blocks from view Notion, and you're telling me that if I get page content and I say this line, but then I will get the ID here like that. You're saying it's that simple? Okay, let's give that a shot real quick. Did I close it by accident? Okay. I don't think it's doing anything. Bum 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 bum. Network. Is it doing anything? Fetch. It did get something. It got a response, but it got an empty response. So API view Notion did not do what I expected it to. That's kind of sad. I don't think I did anything else. I basically use for Notion block map async data await Notion.get page blocks. Yep, I did that. Return block map. I definitely did that. Styles is not the problem. The problem is this dot block map as equals this dot block map equals the response. Well, I mean, this is the response, isn't it? Wait, did I miss something? To try this dot block map equals response. I mean, that's the whole point of this part right here, right? When I set it, it should show up. I mean, to make sure this works, block map equals. Oh, with the serverless function? The serverless function is not even being called anymore. I'm actually trying to I'm trying to actually use their built-in, and the built-in is already not looking totally right. It's funny, it says it works here. So, okay, hold up. Am I doing something wrong? Should I say full page? I don't think that really should do the difference, though. That should not be what breaks this. So try with your function. Okay, I'm gonna undo this. This dot block map equals post map dot results. But results is an array, isn't it though? That's get page blocks. Okay, I don't need that anymore. That's what I think is interesting. It said that it wanted an object, not an array. So yeah, you see, this is the results. It's actually being fed through correctly, which is great. But it's not actually being rendered by Notion renderer, which is a little sad. But that's okay. It's at least we've at least gotten it successfully integrated, and it does mean that at least this kind of stuff is possible, and we can start using it to manage. And so it looks like we're gonna have a part 2 as far as a dive on this, and figuring out why exactly it doesn't work. But on the other hand, this has been a resounding success, even though we've had some glitches early on as far as getting the Notion Nuxt piece integration set up, particularly with the downtime. But that's okay, things happen. And oh, hold up, Guillaume here with the I know. Oh man, did I miss something? Okay, hold up. It's using the non-official Notion API. Oh, wait. So it's not using the actual beta? Oh, wait a second. Oh, I think I get it too. This is not the same thing as... Oh, okay. So, all right. So to show what Guillaume's talking about, issue 32. If you follow the Notion used public API, oh. Okay, yep. Difference a lot from split being Notion. This is like a longer issue. No one wants to hit it up. All right, so we have a resolution to our problem. So the issue is not in how I'm using it, but that they actually had a completely different API design from the beginning. So the renderer does something quite different. So what's kind of fun is this means that going forward, I think for the next build with Ben, we're gonna actually learn how to build with the existing blocks we have, how we can integrate that into Nuxt still, because I do think there's a lot of value. I think most people really enjoy the editing experience within Notion. And again, uptime and stuff, like barring that, which again, really doesn't happen that often. Overall, especially if you're talking about for a personal site, personal blog kind of thing, side projects, definitely has a good enough uptime for like the ROI and the cost and stuff. Absolutely still recommended. Still absolutely great. So, oh wait, let me see. And all right, let's switch on over. Okay, I think, of course, I have something like right in line with the camera. Okay, great. So with that, I think we are at the end of our stream. So thanks everyone who decided to stay over a little bit. We had a little bit of, although in my defense, at the beginning, we had a little bit of a hiccup with the downtime. So, you know, hopefully that it's been informative. But overall, it's nice to see that once the pieces make sense, and so call it. We should write a blog post and get a more official guide up. Once the pieces fall in place, it's nice to see that in the end we're still working with structured data. I have a little bit of concern regarding the complexity of the blocks and how we're gonna I imagine at some point we're gonna have to create custom components for different blocks. And so if it's like a text block, do this. If it's an image block, do this. And that might be some of the fun that we'll get to do. But again, we're going to be in Nuxt land at that point, and so we can actually do what we need to do to make that work. Next time we do a new Vue Notion live and publish on NPM. Honestly, Guillaume, I haven't done a lot of library creation, but if you're up for it, we could totally, I half and half in mind, the parser should be fair. If I think about it, anyways, I feel like I see the architecture in my head, but lots and lots of ideas. Thanks everyone for hanging out today.